There's like your overall in charge. At a strategic level, we've got a party leader. Then we've got the chief whip. A chief whip is in charge when the parliament is in session. So when the parliament is in session in the National Assembly, we also have a chief whip of the NCOP. I'm the chief whip in the National Assembly. So when the National Assembly is in session, then as the chief whip, then I take charge of my caucus. And if the speaker wants to caucus anything with the parties, the people that the speaker would consult would be the chief whips. So it's basically the extension of the administration of parliament. This is what chief whips do. Then we've got administrative committees that chief whips sit in, like a chief whips forum, like the National Assembly Programming Committee, Rules Committee, and all of that. So those are almost like the administrative kind of committees, as it were. So that's what the chief whip does. To cut the long story short, chief whips help to ensure that there's order in parliament. You control your caucus and to make sure that parliament is well. And also, you also must make sure that whatever is being said on that podium, you are okay with, because if anything goes wrong, if anybody says anything there that does not resemble party line, as it were, that embarrasses the party, the go-to person is the chief whip. So which is a difficult part, because sometimes people want to be left to be on their own devices and all of that. But if that happens and they say things that they shouldn't say, no one is going to go to them. They're going to say, Chief Whip, where were you when this was happening? Didn't you read the speech before and all of that? So there is that responsibility, just to make sure that things run the way they should. So in a nutshell, that's what the Chief Whip does.
Okay. So you mentioned caucus. Let's just touch on the Progressive Caucus.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are not aware as to what the Progressive Caucus is, and most importantly, they're not aware of the role of it and its charter. So seeing that you're the Chief Whip, can you please walk us through that as well?
Yeah. Okay. In Parliament, obviously, because with the advent of this coalition of the ANC and the DA and their fellow travelers, you then have the other parties that are more, call it, left-oriented, more revolutionary, and all of that, and more subscribing to socialism, as it were. So we've got those parties on the other spectrum. So we've grouped ourselves as a Progressive Caucus, and the importance of that is that there are certain things that we want to be supporting each other when we push for those kinds of things. Things in the main will be things that are transformation related. We are the forces that make sure that South Africa gets to the next level in terms of transformation. So that's what those forces do. And I must say, despite what happens outside Parliament, inside Parliament, all those parties work very well. We cooperate with each other. We agree on which party should push which project. As an example, when the year starts in 2025, the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party will be tabling a bill, a private member's bill, on the expropriation of land without compensation. Nice. So that's what we'll be doing as we open the year. You know that the EFF is also busy with the Phala Phala project, as it is. So we'll support them there, and we hope that they'll also support us with the land bill, and all of that, because also I think the areas of overlap there are almost like 99% and so on. So there should be no reason why they should support. You know, in fact, we even think even the ANC should support this land issue, because it is also pretty much a 99% overlap with what their own conference in 2017 resolved on. So there should be a lot of alignment of left-wing forces. Even with, you see, the ANC has got a left wing and a right wing. So we hope that the left-wing forces of the ANC will support this bill. And yeah, so that's really what Progressive Caucus does, and that's how we share responsibilities, so that you don't have one party doing everything. For instance, we're all equally capable of doing everything all by ourselves. But because we've got this caucus, we agree that you do this part, I'll do this part, just to make sure that everybody gets their space under the sun.
So, members of parliament and constituency work. How does that interlink with not only Mkhonto party, but also the greater good? Like, what does that entail for them, and how do they bring it to fruition rather than just it being a theory? Can you please walk us through that?
Yeah. Members of parliament, you know, the role properly understood is a very important role.
Okay.
You must remember that in South Africa we've got about 60 odd million people. Now, if you've got 60 odd million people and you only have 400, that represents the interest of 60 million people. You must then understand that the responsibility on your shoulders, that when you speak, in the first instance, you know, I say to people, let's be humble and understand what it means for you personally to be in parliament. It means, give or take, about 40,000 people voted for you, one person. And I'm sure that a lot of us don't have as much of a following as 40,000 people, or even half them, that even a fraction of that. But you're in parliament, and in that seat, you are there at the strength of a minimum of 40,000 people. So that should humble you. You should not think that you are there because of your own devices. You must understand that you are there to represent the interests of those people. And so for us as the MK party, all our members understand the issues, the burning issues that our people are crying about.
Yeah.
So therefore our duty is to make sure that we support policies that are going to achieve that. And if there are no policies that are achieving that, if there's no legislation that is achieving that, we have a duty to introduce a private members bill. That's why we're doing one, for instance, with the land, because our people are sitting on top of each other in the townships, and the vast land of this country, they're not benefiting from that land. So I want people to have, in the first instance, proper residential accommodation. This is before we go commercial, this is before we go agriculture, this is before we go industrial. First things first, can people please have decent yards? Have a backyard, have a front yard. If you want to do your rituals at the back, have the back to do your rituals in, and all of that. We are people of tradition, we are people of slaughtering and all of that. So people must have space to do this. So as Mkhonto, we understand this very well, and our members are going to push for things like that. We know that most people take water for granted, and most of our people still don't have proper drinking water. Some of them have got taps, but those taps are running dry, and all of that. And someone is going to say to you, no, but that's a local issue. No, because before it becomes local, it starts being national. There has to be a proper plan to coordinate the management of water from the rivers, from the dams, and all of that, and how, before we talk reticulation. So before you blame a municipality, you must first deal with the problem at a national level and make sure that the water resources are used properly. So if you are a member of parliament, you must be sensitive to those burning issues on the ground and make sure that the policies that you support and that you push help the people and all of that. So that's really what we are there for. We are there because we want an orderliness in the country. We want laws to govern things and all of that. Therefore, we must make sure, therefore, as members of MK party in parliament, that the parliament must produce the laws that are going to assist the people, take people out of poverty. We think as MK party, it is absurd that the poverty of the Africans in particular has become normalized. No one gets shocked to see a squatter camp. We've normalized poverty. No one gets shocked if you see a 12-year, not even a 12-year, 6-year-old child begging on the streets, begging on the robots. We've normalized this thing. Nothing happens. We have become numb to issues that we shouldn't be numb to. So MK party is there to make sure that we turn things around. So that's why I think that people of South Africa in particular, the so-called black, I don't like this thing of black, I prefer African, because I personally believe that the word black was introduced, but this is fact, the word black was introduced in the 17th century, part of the slavery nonsense and all of that, to group us and all of that. So, and also to deny us our indigenous heritage, because if you call us Africans, then people remember that this is Africa. So in order to push us away from our natural heritage, then we must be given black as a term to detach us from our African heritage. So as a young person, I would encourage people to identify themselves less as black people, but more as Africans. This is who we are. We're Africans.
Yeah.
As it were. Yeah. So.
Okay. So let's reflect on the year that was for Umkhonto party in Parliament. Reality is we are a baby that's finding its way through the landscape of the National Assembly. What are some of the highlights and the achievements that has happened thus far?
No, I think the very first thing, the biggest achievement that Umkhonto has done is to break the back of the ANC. No party has been able to do that. For the past 30 years, they've been knocking and doing all sorts of things. There's been all kinds of splits. The ANC was just standing and not moving. There have been all kinds of other new entrants. The ANC was still standing and not moving. The first party to drop the ANC in the 40s is MK Party. So that achievement must not be underplayed, because that achievement has begun a situation of the current dispensation with this coalition now, which has even exposed that the ANC, in fact, is a sellout organization. You see, the current ANC of Ramaphosa is really a sellout organization, in that there is no way a Chris Hani, a Oliver Tambo, a Lembede would have done the kind of deal that the ANC has done with the DA. No? So the emergence of the MK Party has actually exposed the true colors of this Ramaphosa ANC. And therefore, if you look at MK, one of the other achievements is that it has created a home for people that want their dignity back. The MK Party is the only party that can bring us our dignity and make sure that we've got our own dignity as a people. So if MK Party does not succeed, hey, then we're in trouble, so much trouble, and we cannot afford that risk. So we would call upon everyone to ensure that this project of MK Party must succeed for the betterment of the country. So that's been one major achievement in Parliament. Who would have thought that a major a leading opposition party in Parliament could be a party like MK? As we start in Parliament, MK becomes the official opposition. This is big. This is big. No other parties that have been there have been able to do this, except the traditional white parties, European parties, because of the apartheid issues and so on. But of the other African parties that are there, only the MK managed to be the official opposition, and that's not something to be taken lightly. It's a pecking order. It means even in Parliament, there are certain debates that when they start, the next person to respond to that debate must be the official opposition. Even if you've got others that might have bigger numbers like us, like the DA, in many instances in the debates, they come after us because we are the official opposition. We set the tone, the rest follows. So I think it's something to be proud of as MK.
Tremendously so. So let's look at the people's mandate. Earlier on, you mentioned the plan to table a plan with regards to expropriation without compensation of land, right? And obviously that links with our pillar of reclaiming our mineral resources and land. Which other pillars, realistically, are we planning on achieving in the incoming year?
Well, before we achieve any of these pillars, they will not be achievable if we don't sort out the constitution.
Okay.
So one of the big focuses of the MK party is to amend the constitution. We want to move away from the current dispensation of constitutional democracy to parliament sovereignty. There's a fundamental difference. You see, with constitutional democracy, it means the constitution is the supreme law of the land. It means that the fact that you might have 2/3 majority or more in parliament, make whatever law, that law can be challenged in court, and they can find all kinds of technicalities and decide that, you know, what you've just agreed on as a law is rational or is not moral, all kinds of things, and then it can be struck off. That's what we have. So actually the constitutional democracy that we have now was actually a ploy to undermine the majority of the Africans in this country. So because it means your overwhelming majority counts for nothing. That's what it is with constitutional democracy. What counts is the rule of law. So we have a constitution that says anything inconsistent with the constitution is declared null and void. Even our customary law as Africans is subject to the constitution, is subject to the Roman Dutch law. If we do anything in our customary law that is not consistent with that, that is declared null and void. I mean, what is that? So with parliament sovereignty, it means parliament is a supreme legal entity. It means once parliament decides that this is it and votes on it, and this parliament has agreed on a particular thing, no court can review what parliament has said. So in other words, the true will of the people can only be achieved through parliament sovereignty. So this has to be the biggest focus of the MK party, because if the MK party was not to focus on that and was to focus on everything else that is there in the pillars, all of those things will be challenged with this constitutional democracy and will be undermined. So therefore it's not even worth going into detail about the rest of the other pillars until we sort out these ones. Obviously, it's not like I don't know the other pillars. We would want the universal health care, for instance. We would want everybody in this country to be able to go to any hospital and get the best medication and the best medical treatment and all of that. We would want a situation where, in one of our pillars of driving the economy, as MBK party, we would want a situation where there is massification of industrialization. Without industrialization, there will be no sustainable jobs. So we have to industrialize, and therefore it means our education system must reflect that policy. So our education system in MK party has to reflect what the economy requires. So if you industrialize and then you build, you educate to bring in technical skills, technical people and all of that, technicians, artisans, all those people, people that can do, engineers and all of those, that's the kind of economy that we want. If we don't do that, then we are going to sit in the current situation where we're just consumers and consumers and consumers, and we go nowhere. We're sitting here right now with about 60% of 60% unemployment in young people. It's a disaster. Can't have a thing like this. So with the MK party starting with sorting out the constitution, we'll be able to then roll out the rest of the other policies much better.
Okay. I like that you spoke about young people. Which leads to my next question.
I've got a few in my own house.
Representation. So whether we like it or not, young people are the majority of this country, as well as women. When you look at our members of parliament, there aren't any young people there. You, as the chief whip, what is your plan on integrating more women and more young people into the membership, or rather as members of the National Assembly?
Right. Let me dodge this question this way. This way.
Dodge it towards you.
Yeah, this way. You see, His Excellency President Zuma came up with a very interesting model.
Okay.
The model he has, which we've all adopted, is one that puts governance at the center of everything. What we do at MK Party, the only party that does this, is to say there are deployees and there is the party. We in Parliament are deployees. We are at the mercy of what the party is doing. That question is more relevant to the party. It's the party that deploys, you know. So I'm the subject of the party. I'm the subject of the party. So it's the party that deploys. But it's not something that President Zuma is not focusing on. One of the things, for instance, that he has done in the constitution of the MK Party is to draw a ceiling on who is a young person, to make sure that when you say young people, you know, MK Party has got its own definition of a young person, which is different from everybody else. Everybody else would count somebody who's 35 still a young person. In MK Party, we cut at 30 because we want real young people, because we want them to bring freshness, we want them to bring all these other young people things. Because when you're 35, you're actually a young adult. You're already thinking about your family and you're thinking about your house and all of these things. Whereas maybe a young person still wants education, still wants to, different school of thought below 30, a different school of thought above 30. That's how MK thinks about this thing. So it's only our first year. We needed to make sure that we send people there that can get the foundation right. We are just there to build the foundation, don't worry. Once the foundation is set and this thing is proper, then we'll be doing those things. But there is a focus on that. But as I say, the right people to answer is the party. Yeah, I'm just a deployee.
Okay, we'll let it go for now. So to wrap, what should we anticipate for the Mkhonto Party in the coming year as the official opposition in Parliament?
You must remember that MK Party did not set itself up to be an opposition.
Facts.
Yeah, MK Party had geared itself up to be the ruling party. MK Party still has got cases going about challenging these elections that came and go. So we are, this opposition is not, what shall I call it, is not a philosophical posture of the MK Party. Our philosophical posture is a government in waiting. This is who we are. And you would see that by how we make our submissions. Our submissions will always end with the way forward. We don't just criticize for the sake of criticizing. We criticize, but we say this is what we do differently. None of that. For instance, we criticize even the issue of the 5 billion for the e-tolls, because we think that they have, instead of shouldering the fiscals with 5 billion, there could have been a whole number of ways in which a thinking government could have dealt with that problem without burdening fiscals. So we even issued a statement as MK Party on the detail of that. We had about 5 different things that could have been done to deal with that, just as an example. So I'm saying that the posture of MK Party in Parliament, as things stand, is a government in waiting posture, not opposition posture, so to speak. We oppose, yes, but a government in waiting. When you see us, you must see a responsible party, a party that can take over next year. By the way, this is what His Excellency President Zuma has been doing. The people he has put there in that parliament are people that can get this thing going without any handover. I can tell you this now, without any fear of a contradiction, that if you were to say to MK Party it must take over next year, honestly, we won't need any handover from these people. We can get into that thing and run with it, because in MK Party we've got very experienced people in this government. Most of us that are in there have had all our experiences, private sector and public sector, at very executive level. So therefore we are ready to govern as MK Party. So we're a government in waiting. Government in waiting. Well, thank you so much for gracing us.
Honourable Mani. It's been an honor, it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to hearing more from you. So, Gwaza Mkhonto Gwaza.
Gwaza Mkhonto Gwaza, but we're looking forward to the birthday coming up. We